Welcome to Culture Shock. I am your host, Ricardo Picena, aka the Meditating Cowboy, and our mission and intent with this podcast is to share information as we humans have always been doing that since the beginning of time. I emphasize on sharing information about human nature, both our spiritual and physical parts of it, while still taking in consideration taboo or sensitive subjects, because due to human nature, we created that. So I want to add context and dialogue to it. I don't necessarily want to startle anybody or offend anybody, but I will like for us to reflect on this information as it is empirical information, which means it's practical. You can apply it to your life. And I think that will help us grow together as a collective, whether you even believe my beliefs or the ideas, or if you can regain perspective on your own beliefs by listening to what I am saying, by reassuring or regaining perspective. This is Culture Shock. I'm excited to start the second podcast. This is actually my second time recording this. I forgot to plug up the mic, so please bear with me. I'm an amateur, but I do appreciate everybody who gave me feedback. That means a lot to me. Love y'all. So our topic is happiness and how to harness it. The definition of happiness is feeling and showing contentment or pleasure. And the way we harness it, according to psychologists and professionals, it is by creating it through your thoughts. So ultimately, this means we create happiness by thought alone. And it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as like, well, I'm just going to be happy by thinking happiness. Unless you have been practicing it and you are aware of the information that it requires for you to create happiness. On a study that Dr. Maxwell Waltz and other psychologists did, it shows that synthetic happiness works. Synthetic happiness would be, okay, so in this example is like, one option was you get to choose $130 million that you win at a lottery. And the other one is you were going to be paraplegic. So ultimately, we rather get the lottery. We rather win the lottery, right? We assume that brings happiness with current society's beliefs, of course. I'm putting in perspective. Society sees that right now. So we think that, acquiring money and wealth, all this is ultimately happiness. But in the studies, it shows that people who have been paraplegic show to be happier than people who have money or, I guess, wealthy. And I think, this is my perspective, it is because what truly matters, the foundation of what truly matters in life that makes you happy, is not bought. You can't buy it. You can temporarily purchase something that'll make you happy, but once that void gets bigger that you're trying to fill in through materialistic consumptions, you're left with this emptiness. And I think that as we learn and grow this information and we apply it to ourselves, we will see that synthetic happiness works. But it is a practice. Like I said, all this knowledge is empirical knowledge, so it means you're going to have to put it into practice. And sure, like maybe you can say, oh, whatever, like they're saying that because most people are paraplegic, they have no other choice, you know what I mean? But ultimately, that does create your happiness if you're content in that state. Obviously, most people would not rather be paraplegic, but the studies have shown, and there's other options, other studies that people have done that kind of shows you what synthetic happiness is and why it helps. Because ultimately, your mind, your brain does simulations And it could, I'm trying to piece this together. You can foretell things because the front of our brain is the neocortex, and it decides. So for example, Ben and Jerry's, they did not come out with an ice cream that's liver and onions, because the thought alone, we can decide, it's like, ugh, that sounds nasty for ice cream. I mean, I like liver and onions grilled on the pan, but for ice cream, nuh-uh. So synthetic happiness would be like imagining what you really like, what you really are passionate and your purpose, and continually mentally building that construct on a daily basis, regardless of your external circumstances. That's what synthetic happiness is still being optimistic, even though the outcome currently isn't exactly what you want. And I think if y'all could review the first podcast and learn, or not review, maybe review the ego and selfish part of my podcast, and or research on Google or YouTube what other people are saying what the ego and self-image is, because that creates self-awareness. Self-awareness means you know yourself, like you're starting to know yourself. As you know yourself, you start to pick, well, for example, me, oh man, I just thought of one yesterday. When growing up, I was told that my uncles would ask me, hey, mijo, how many girlfriends do you have? Implying that I could have more than one girlfriend. So that always stuck to me in my head, like, what caused them to say this? Now, like, I'm thinking, what caused them to say this? And not only that, I see how it shaped my perception, how I see the world. I believe in non-monogamous relationships. I also believe in monogamous relationships, but this is a different topic. And I'm just trying to give an example of what being self-aware and the self-image means ultimately to being happy. So I got introduced at a young age that I could have more than one girlfriend, and that ultimately shaped my perception. I thought that was happiness, and then when I had just one girlfriend, I wanted to have more girlfriends, and I was more happy, but it was at the detriment at someone else's emotions and feelings. And that self-awareness is why I am no longer trying to do those type of relationships. And ultimately, I am more happier. I am single. My last relationship was good. It's just that's really where I learned most of this stuff as far as like happiness and relationships, and ultimately self-awareness. And I think as we take more accountability and responsibility for our thoughts, our actions, we create a healthier self-image and ultimately create that happiness that we are all trying to find and go for. I'm not trying to talk down on anybody that buys stuff for happiness. That's not my place. Even if I'm like razzing y'all or trying to be condescending, I promise you that is not my intention. I love y'all, but not enough to spend time to talk shit to y'all. Just enough to encourage y'all and empower y'all. So please never don't feel offended. And if you do feel offended, email me and tell me, let's talk about it. Email me at themeditatingcowboy@gmail.com and we could talk about it. I would love to talk about it. And if anybody else wants to come into podcast and put their perspective, I would love for y'all to come onto the podcast. I do have a small little studio, but we can work something out. So back to how we can harness happiness. So assuming that y'all understand the concept of creating happiness, or assuming that y'all understand the concept of what ego and being self-aware means, creating happiness requires us to take that accountability and responsibility to create it and do everything in our reach to reach it without falling, what is it called? Without falling victim to our own ego. For example, I have a set of beliefs and I like to listen to other beliefs, but at some point I don't like to listen to some beliefs because I have already looked into them, and it's just, there's something inside of me that makes me think like, if this person believes this belief, I can't imagine what they think of me. Like, and that ultimately, obviously it's selfish, but it makes me think that this other human being needs just more love and needs more self-awareness if their belief system is to hurt others or to see others as weak. And ultimately that means it's inside of us. I have noticed I've been saying ultimately, but I have also been noticing that I have not been saying so bear with me, y'all. Let me see. So yeah, let me recap all this. So happiness is a feeling and showing contentment or pleasure. I want to get a little deep into what a feeling is. A feeling is an emotion or a reaction that we do. If you want to take more control of that, you have to build your self-awareness, your self-image, the way you see yourself, or build a healthy ego. I like to use different knowledges or different languages to explain ultimately the same thing, because we just never know which path we are, and I'm trying to reach humans. I was told that if I'm trying to reach more humans, I should watch my cussing. I try, but I cannot stop being authentic. So if I am being cussing too much, I apologize. Okay, and then ultimately how to harness happiness. It is created. So I'm gonna give y'all another perspective on how to create happiness. So for example, if you are, say in the morning, I try to build my intention for the day. If my intention is to bring happiness and love, even when I'm driving, I used to have road rage. When I'm driving and somebody ignorantly cuts me off, that feeling I get, I'm like, you selfish motherfucker. But that, when I think that, I automatically think of my mission and my intention, and I'm like, wait, yeah, I'm just gonna have to swallow this one. I'm just gonna have to keep driving, you know what I mean? Slow down, let that person in. And now I don't say that no more. Like, I don't even think that. I stop myself. I'm like, no, I don't even think that. I automatically think this person needs more self-awareness. I'm like, you are being selfish. You need more self-awareness. I wish that upon you. And just continue driving. And sometimes I don't even react, which is a reaction in itself. So I am definitely growing with y'all. Another perspective on how to harness happiness is, this is probably going to be one everybody can relate, because most of us have girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever y'all have. When you find yourself very annoyed or bothered by your significant other, and you actually truly want to work things out, don't even communicate that. If you already try to communicate that bothers you, everything's not about communication. The first thing about relationships is respect. So if you want to create a stronger relationship and be happy with your significant other, you have to learn what respect is. The definition, according to Dr. Jung, I can't even say their Asian name. They're doctors, psychologists. Respect is not having authority over one another. It is oh man, there's more to it. I can't remember, but that alone, not having authority over others, that's respect. So if that is respect, your significant other is annoying you, don't even mention anything. Just respect them more and accept them for that characteristic that they're showing. Now, if this characteristic is too strong and you can't take it and you're trying to just be done with it, then yeah, you definitely want to communicate and apply little practical practices, like practicing respect and ultimately creating your own happiness by changing your perspective on how you see your relationship, or how you see your significant other reacting. That takes strong self-awareness. That takes really, not, I don't want to say kill your ego, humbling down your ego to better understand the other human being. And that can be applied to anything. It can be applied to your coworker. If your coworker is bothering you and you're actually trying to have a higher conscience and be more happy, then you will have to ultimately take more responsibility and accountability on how you handle situations, which in turns builds a healthy self-image, which in turns should make you happier because you're manifesting your life now more smoothly. And yeah, man, I love that. I love doing that. I don't know if I don't always do that. I think I do, because I try to just associate myself with human beings that understand that. And even when I'm around that human beings that don't, I'm ultimately empathetic to their lack of like awareness and love overall. Last night, I actually almost teared up when I read somebody's comment towards somebody else. And I was like, I was trying to empathize so much with this guy spreading hate, because his hate ultimately had no logic behind it. And what that lets me know is the fact that this person's hurting so far inside. The stuff that they said, it's like, I'm thinking, damn, if they have this amount of energy, time, and hate inside of them to leave a comment this rude for somebody that ultimately probably doesn't even care, it's, to me, it's like, man, like you're harnessing hate. And it made me feel really bad. Like I did send that person like love through here. I believe, I believe in science and also believe in spirituality, and I believe that we have this power. Like, I can send you energy through this. If you're watching me on my video, like, I'm kind of like doing this. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I know you can feel by the way I'm like looking at y'all. Like, if I just look at you like in a rude way, I'm sending you literally energy. You can read body language. I didn't even speak. So what does that mean? I truly believe that I can send, not just me, anybody, but I'm just saying what I did. I sent this person love and happiness. Whether they get it, I don't know. I really don't know. But since I do believe that our subjective reality changes our objective reality, I choose to believe that. And my whole reality doesn't base on just that. I'm not just living in a metaphysical mindset. Obviously, I put actions to my words. So to finish this recap, let me see. So happiness will ultimately be up to you to create. That means you have to take more responsibility, more accountability for your actions, for your thoughts. And if you can do this, I promise you will be able to see some change. We're all different. I accept that. But ultimately, our human nature is all the same. And I accept that as well. Let me see the empowering question of the day. If you can add or remove or balance out one thing in the world, what would it be? I would like for y'all to write in your answers, and I can pick one out and read it out loud on the podcast and give y'all a shout out if you want to interact in that way. I would love for you to do that. I haven't really thought about what I would add, remove, or balance out in the world. But let's just say, because I believe that if we remove something, we can't see the other, which will be like polarity, the polarity of life. Like you can't be cold You can't tell somebody, oh, I'm cold, if you didn't know what the opposite was, or if you didn't know in general. But yeah, if you didn't know what hot is, you wouldn't be able to say that I'm cold. If you don't know what hate is, you wouldn't know what love is. So ultimately, you can't have one without the other. So if I could balance one thing out in the world, it would be pessimism and cynicism. Just because I do believe those things can come in handy, because I believe it's part of surviving. If we are not cynical, sometimes people could take advantage of us, or they are taking advantage of people. You know what I mean? But I feel like ultimately it's our responsibility to create a healthy ego, which basically what I'm saying is it's healthy. It's our responsibility to create a positive, optimistic point of view in life, because we already know the ending of life. So why do you want to spend your life complaining? Why do you want to spend your life hating when you already know the ending of everybody's life? Now, if that's what makes you happy, cool. But I would like for you to put a sign in front of your shirt: pessimism makes me happy, so I can stay away. But I will send you love from far away. Don't get me wrong. I will send you love from far away. Our next podcast will be next Wednesday, unless I can get it out earlier. But I'm gonna be posting every Wednesday, and it will be on unconditional love. I would like for y'all to feel free to ask questions on that topic, even though I haven't even given the advice or my perspective on it. I know some of y'all actually have points of views already in your mind, have ideologies. If y'all can ask some of those questions as well based on the topic, that'd be cool. And also, if y'all want to request topics, feel free to send them to the meditatingcowboy@gmail.com. I will love to communicate with y'all. My gift of the day is still the Meditating Cowboy stickers. I have 3 style of Meditating Cowboy stickers. If you're watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see them. If you're just listening to me, just go ahead and send me your email, and I will, or if not your email, your mailing address, and I will mail them to you. And yeah, so on my outro, I want everybody to remember that love and happiness comes from within, and it's practical. We have 3 brains. It's actually 1 brain, but it does 3 things. It goes from thinking to being to doing. And we are creatures of habits. So if you can be mindful of those things that you go from thinking, being, and doing, then I think we can create happiness on a daily basis, regardless of our circumstances outside. And I also want to remind every human being that we are loved unconditionally. Very much so that we are allowed to believe we are not loved. And I think as we grow, we will see exactly what those words mean. Because I had no idea what the fact that we are loved unconditionally, that we are allowed to feel we're not loved unconditionally, really meant. And that is ultimately the free will of a human being, that you are allowed to feel and think however you want. Even when external circumstances are pushing against you, ultimately you have the choice to decide if you want to react in that way.